This man unlocks psychic powers and now has to solve a mystery that will leave you shook. We kick off with this little dude Jake humming away while taking a bath. His dad's on guitar duty, serenading him like a champ. Jake gazes into nothingness and hits up his imaginary BFF for a deep chat. Ah, the good old days of innocent imaginary friends. Actually, those days are still going for me. Dad steps out to fetch Jake's favorite PJs before bedtime. Meanwhile, Jake asks his invisible pal what's it like on the other side. Cue the ominous music. Downstairs, Jake's mom Maggie chats with her sis Lisa. Lisa spills the beans that Maggie's got a bun in the oven, catching Tom off guard. His reaction? A heartfelt bummer. Dad of the year material right there. Tom and Lisa squabble and he sends her off to help Jake. Tom then tries to smooth things over with Maggie. Turns out Tom's miffed because he's got to amp up the adulting game, leaving less time for his fresh out the garage band. He promises Maggie he'll step it up, but she reassures him she loves him just as he is. He mopes off, feeling pretty average. Later that night, Tom tucks Jake in, who's totally faking Z's. Outside, Tom, Maggie, and Lisa glam up and hit the party scene. Tom and his buddy Frank chat with some dudes while Lisa's on the prowl for a catch. Frank too is hoping to reel in his dream girl, but his wife catches him fishing in the wrong pond. Busted. The after party is a hoot. Lisa brings up hypnosis and Tom dares her to put him under, something he'll instantly regret. She hesitates because he's tipsy, but he insists. So they dim the lights and she gets to work. Spoiler alert, successful hypnosis is just a few shots of angry juice away. Tom starts seeing spooky stuff, then wakes up with no memory of the weird trip he took. Also, his butt hurts. Just kidding. Little does he know, he spilled some embarrassing childhood secrets, like getting his butt clapped by a kid named Joe Luca. Later that night, memories of this hypno journey start flooding back. Maggie starts to get frisky, maybe dreaming of that hot firefighter calendar. They embrace, but Tom's mind is stuck in his freaky vision. Talk about a mood killer. He sees someone being tickled and leaps out of the bed, scaring the bejesus out of Maggie. He pops some pills in the bathroom, then freaks out when he hallucinates that his tooth falls out. Luckily, it's just a false alarm. Desperate for distraction, Tom chugs a bottle of milk downstairs. But instead of soothing his nerves, he sees the tortured woman again. What's the deal? A lactose-loathing poltergeist? He moves on to some late-night TV, but the woman pops up and freaks him out even more. On his way upstairs, he bumps into Jake, who's all, "Dad, don't be scared of it." Wait, what? This is honestly way creepier than the ghost lady. The next morning, Tom attempts to explain his wild hallucination to Maggie, who jumps to the conclusion that the woman in his vision must be some past makeout buddy. Oh, the female mind. At work, Tom hits up Lisa, wondering if she left some hypnotic mumbo-jumbo in his noggin. Lisa admits she might have planted a suggestion to be open-minded. Great, now Tom's mind is wide open for ghostly visitors. Lisa confesses she's never done that before, sending Jake into a mild panic. Later on, Lisa gets a call from Maggie. At the house, Maggie dials up Lisa to see if she's up for some babysitting duties. Jake chats with his ghostly BFF Samantha and suggests to his mom that they call a lady named Debbie for babysitting instead. When asked how he knows about Debbie, he spills that Samantha told him, but Maggie just shrugs it off. Night falls and Debbie arrives at their house. Tommy keeps seeing ominous red lights around her. He later interrogates Maggie about where she met the mysterious Debbie. Outside, Tom and Maggie chill with Frank McCarthy and Sheila McCarthy, probably arguing over the best pizza toppings or something. Back home, Debbie passes the time reading a book while listening to Jake sleep on a walkie-talkie, just to make sure all is well in dreamland. On the road, Tom keeps seeing things. They all walk in a crowd, and Frank attempts to have a convo with the zoned-out Tom, who seems lost in his own world, probably pondering the meaning of life or just really hungry. Relatable. Debbie catches wind that Jake isn't sleeping and hears him talking to someone. She creeps towards the stairs and calls out his name. In the crowd, Maggie asks Tom if he's alright, as he's looking like he partied way too hard last night. As Debbie reaches Jake's room, he spills the beans about Samantha. Debbie gets mad and decides to rescue Jake by carrying him away. Suddenly, Tom's spidey senses tingle and he knows Debbie's up to no good with Jake. He bolts home, Maggie struggling to keep up, as she's basically running for two now. Tom's got this weird red pulse vision helping him track them down, eventually spotting Debbie at a train station. He snatches Jake back and the cops get involved. Debbie explains that she was taking Jake to her mom, who works at the train station, because Jake mentioned Samantha, who they've been trying to find for 6 months. Tom decides not to press charges when he realizes the ghost from his living room was Samantha all along. Later, he and Maggie connect the dots that Jake had suggested hiring Debbie in the first place. Back home, Tom and Maggie grill Jake about Samantha, and suddenly Samantha starts speaking through Jake's mouth, giving them both the heebie-jeebies. Tom tries to get Jake to channel her again, but Maggie nixes the idea, too freaked out. Jake clams up because he doesn't want to scare his mom. That night, Jake sleeps with his mom while Tommy watches TV, secretly hoping for another ghostly encounter. Time to break out the Ouija board and popcorn. The next day, Lisa, channeling her inner Regina George, tells Maggie that Tommy's looking exceptionally fetch today, and Maggie starts to cry. Lisa quickly backpedals, realizing she went a tad too far with her sarcasm. Meanwhile, Tom channels his inner Sherlock and questions his landlord, Harry Damon, and his son Kurt about Samantha, but they only tell him she's gone all runaway bride on them. Maggie and Lisa chat about Tommy's situation, and Lisa, now wearing her wise owl hat, advises her to get some help for her family. When Frank shows up, Tom grills him about Samantha too. A dude named Lenny calls Samantha the R word, and Frank's inner Hulk emerges, nearly transforming Lenny's face into a modern art piece. At home, Tom wakes up to find a note from Lisa, saying she took Jake to the park, probably to escape the madness. He also finds Frank in his house, which is not creepy at all. Frank tells him that they're planning a surprise party for him and Maggie. Kidding. They're going to take their lives. Tom is as confused as a chameleon in a bag of Skittles, so he goes to see his wife, Sheila, hoping she can decode Frank's message. When he reaches Frank's house, Tom spots Frank's son, Adam, casually carrying around a gun. Adam later decides to accidentally injure himself with it. Oops. After Tommy jolts awake, he realizes it was all a dream, except plot twist. The entire day plays out just like his dream. He rushes to Frank's house, hears a gunshot, and channeling his inner action hero, breaks in to find Adam on the ground. Later, the police arrive and race to get Adam to the hospital. Lisa watches from their front porch and decides to take Jake for a walk because she's had enough crazy for one day. Thank you very much. On their walk, she plays with Jake. Jake runs towards a man playing a pipe. At a funeral, he gets close to the police officers, giving them somber salutations, and one of the officers waves at him. Lisa scoops him up and they stroll through the graveyard like it's a sunny day in the park. The policeman walks toward them and Loki creeps Maggie out, but doesn't leave when she asks if they're trespassing. I half expected him to hit her with a shovel when she turns around, but he only tells her Jake has supernatural eyes, like some baby superhero, and gives her an address for Tom. Somehow Jake mentions that the man's name is Neil, and Maggie wonders how he knows that. Maybe they're BFFs from a secret baby police alliance. Later that night, as Tom struggles to hit a note on his guitar from a song he doesn't know how he knows, Jake steps in like a mini maestro, showing him the correct hand placement. And Viola, who knew being haunted by ghosts was the secret to being the next Mozart. Maggie decides to head out to see Neil, and the 1.5 men don't even notice. They're too busy preparing for the next gig at the haunted house. On the street, Lisa's trying to explain to a Chinese lady that she's searching for Neil, but the language barrier is tougher than a 2-day-old bagel. Eventually, the lady points her towards a dark alley. You know, because dark alleys are the perfect place for meeting new friends, right? Anyway, Lisa finally finds Neil, who's a bit salty because he was expecting Tom, not her. Neil reluctantly fills her in that Tom is a receiver now, even though Tom's as clueless as a goldfish at a Mensa meeting. Neil tells her that a ghost made a request, and unless Tom figures out what it is and does it, she'll be stuck with him like a bad tattoo. At night, Maggie takes a bath, blissfully unaware that she's got the spiritual awareness of a potato. She hears Jake watching a scary movie and goes to change the channel. After getting back in the tub, Samantha's ghost appears in the mirror, but Maggie's too dense to notice. Samantha decides to make her presence known by turning the bathwater colder than a penguin's toenails, but Maggie still doesn't catch on. Meanwhile, Samantha's trying to get Jake's attention through the TV, but he's like, nah, not now. I'm watching my cartoons, yo. A boy and his cartoons. It's a sacred bond. Downstairs, Tom's still trying to decipher the earworm of a song that's been playing in his head. Lisa wants Tom to fix the water heater, but he's too busy being tormented by the world's catchiest tune. She decides to take matters into her own hands and lights the fire. Meanwhile, Samantha's messing with Jake by changing his channel to a scary movie. Talk about ghostly trolling. When Maggie gets to the basement, Samantha flickers the lights, causing Maggie to whack her noggin. Upstairs, Jake's had enough of Samantha's shenanigans and he yanks the TV plug. But surprise! Samantha brought her A-game and some supernatural inverters, so the show goes on. Jake's world starts getting all spooky and he sees Samantha. Tom reaches out to her too and starts choking. Plot twist. Petite woman chokes big dude. Sounds like my search history. Maggie, now sporting a minor concussion, finds Tom choking and saves the day. Later on, Debbie puts up a missing poster of Samantha. It's like a ghostly milk carton ad. In a frenzy, Tom barges into Lisa's home, demanding to be hypnotized again. He couldn't care less that she's higher than a kite or that her guest is majorly ticked off about the interruption. Lisa agrees and hypnotizes him. During the session, Tom spots Samantha at a movie theater. Even ghosts need some entertainment, right? She grabs him and he starts choking again. On the screen, Tom sees the word dig in capital letters. He snaps out of the vision and goes for a beer because, you know, priorities. He tells Lisa he's supposed to dig. No biggie, just your average ghostly errand. The next day, Maggie comes home to what seems like a juice aisle exploded in her fridge and discovers 1.5 men, one being particularly short, digging up her yard. Maggie approaches Tom, who's part of the digging duo, and he informs her it's his job to dig. The whole scene looks like a knockoff version of ghost pirates hunting for treasure. Maggie threatens to call the cops, and Tom challenges her on what she'll tell them. "Excuse me, officer, my husband is digging a hole and it's bugging me." Maggie tells him to knock it off, but Tom yells back that this is the most epic quest of his life. Poggers. Maggie gets irritated and calls him out for making it sound like their life is a bad sitcom. Later, Tom comes inside and apologizes to Maggie. He spots her reading a letter from her brother, which claims their grandma is headed back to the hospital. He starts to say it's not true but clams up. Before Maggie can ask what he meant, her phone rings. It's her brother Steve, sadly informing her that the grandma has passed away. Rip in peace. Maggie heads outside and Tom attempts to comfort her. She asks him to come to the funeral but he's hesitant, too caught up in his ghost-busting side gig. She loses her cool and starts channeling her inner exorcist. The next day, Maggie leaves Tom behind to go to the funeral of Jake. Tom carries on with his treasure hunt, but his equipment turns on him like a bad B-movie robot. He dashes to the basement to troubleshoot only to find a mysterious dent in the floor. X marks the spot, baby. He starts digging into the concrete, but after several hours he realizes he's going to need more than a spoon to crack this nut. Cut to Tom at the store where he spots an excavator practically winking at him. He drags it home and neighbor Sheila catches sight of him, wondering if he's starting a home renovation show. Tom begins digging like a man possessed, drawing the attention of his landlord. Meanwhile, at the funeral, Jake's busy sketching something on paper but keeps ripping it up in frustration. Maggie calls Tom and they exchange apologies. Tom assures her everything is back to normal, but Maggie insists on coming to get him. He reluctantly agrees, knowing his home now resembles an archaeological dig. That treasure had better be the Holy Grail. Maggie decides to head back to big Tom up, but Jake doesn't want to leave, claiming he's seen a vision of feathers. Maybe he's found his spirit animal. Lisa promises to watch over him, so Maggie sets off solo, preparing for the chaos that awaits her at home. Tom, in the midst of his digging escapades, accidentally thumps into a brick wall behind him and realizes there's something hidden there. Geez, Ghosty, next time just say break instead of dig. Save us all some time. Jake breaks down the wall and discovers the not-so-fashion-forward, decaying body of a woman, with her glasses askew. He reaches out to touch her hands, maybe to offer condolences on her outdated accessories, but instead enters a trance. In the vision, Jake witnesses Samantha being lured by the not-so-chivalrous Adam McCarthy and Kurt Damon. Kurt gets a bit too handsy, so Samantha starts screaming. In an attempt to drown her out, they blast some tunes, which just so happens to be the earworm that's been torturing Tom. When that fails, Adam smothers Samantha with a plastic bag. After the trance ends, Jake scrambles out of the basement, catching Harry's eye through the window. Outside, Jake meets up with Frank to spill the tea on why Adam might have injured himself. Frank, feeling backed into a corner, busts out a gun and forces Jake to leave. As Jake steps out of the basement, he hears a gunshot, but before he can channel his inner Sherlock, he's interrupted by a knock on the door. Surprise, it's Harry and Kurt. Trying to play it cool, Jake covers up by saying he was fixing the water mains. Harry, ever the plumber enthusiast, points out that the water mains don't run under the house. Busted. Jake attempts to flee, but the goon squad knocks him down and tries to send him off to dreamland with a pillow. Just in the nick of time, Maggie honks outside, giving Jake a reprieve. Maggie, tired of waiting, grabs a kitchen knife and heads inside. You know what they say, when life gives you lemons, bring a knife to a gunfight. She's attacked by Harry, but Jake swoops in to save the day, giving Maggie the chance to give Harry a good old foot stab. As Kurt tries to stab up, Frank emerges from the cellar like a phoenix and takes out Harry and Kurt. His last shot goes through the roof and into the bed, sending a flurry of feathers everywhere. Turns out Jake was right on the money after all. Overwhelmed with guilt, Frank decides to turn over a new leaf. He repeats the phrase from Jake's vision just before Adam injured himself and steps out to sit on the porch, contemplating life's mysteries. Outside, Samantha's ghost materializes, sporting her fresh specs and a coat with a smirk. Talk about a supernatural fashionista. She vanishes into the night, finally at peace. In the aftermath, Jake and his family say peace out to the haunted house and hit the road. Samantha's bones are returned to her family for a proper send-off, and Jake feels accomplished for setting things right. In the final scene, as the family drives away, Jake tries to block out the cacophony of spirit voices by covering his head. Poor guy. Every ghost in town wants him to solve their mysteries now. Moral of the story? Kevin Bacon.